What's up, my friends? Jalen Stubbs here. Welcome back to another episode of Jalen's Jumpstart. Mike Hill, an American television personality and talk show host who currently serves as a sports broadcaster for Fox Sports. Perseverance. Discipline. Mr. Hill demonstrates what it means to recognize your situation and to make sacrifices for your family and for what you want to do. And he talks about how you have to really recognize who you are and to recognize that some burdens in your life will eventually become blessings. So stay tuned to what he has to say. It's very great. Mr. Hill, you were named the best sports broadcaster or the best sportscaster for people who don't love sports. Now, that actually stuck to me because it's really, if you have to love sports to want to like listen to things like this and listen to journalists, but you've kind of really just broke that barrier. So what does that tell you? Like, how does that really speak to you? This happened when you were at the Tennessee and at WKRN, and you received 2 Emmys for coverage of high school football.
Yeah, that was some years ago, man. That was one of the best honors I can say, man, that I've ever gotten because you're a sports fan, you're gonna tune in because you want to know if your team won. Even back then it was more about the highlights and about the scores and all that. Now it's more about the opinions and things like that with all the pundits that are going on that are becoming very popular. But back then, it was about the creativity of, can I make this sports story something that's relatable to the non-sports fan? If you lived in Tennessee, and Martha in Murfreesboro, who really don't watch sports, but, she stuck around because it came on after weather on the local news station, whatever, and you can keep their attention. If you can keep their attention for that period of time, then you're doing your job. And so that was a very high honor. And that's some of the things that I even try and do these days when it comes to, giving something that's relatable to people. Even when I have to talk about sports, I want to do it so people who aren't sports fans can get something out of it. When am I informing? Am I entertaining? And I'm trying to enlighten in every different way.
So you talk about keeping a focus when you're doing your thing on air. And whenever you're just producing content, what are some ways you really just draw that kind of attention to sports?
What you mean, like as far as drawing the attention to sports, in what way? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
From people who aren't sports fans.
Oh yeah, just you just try and make it relatable. You try and give them analogies of some things. You use certain terms in sports that people don't understand. You can talk about bringing in the closer. You know what I mean? What's a closer mean? If a non-sports fan doesn't know what that means, so I can say, hey, say you're trying to get a business deal done, and you've already got that pitch, but you got that one guy who comes in and he just kind of closes the deal. That's what a closer is in baseball. If you can do it something where you can give little analogies to make it a little bit more relatable and a little bit more palatable for the people that are there. And if you can be entertaining, I mean, that's the most important thing. You got to be entertaining. If you can entertain somebody, make them laugh, make them think, evoke an emotion or a memory or whatever, then you're doing your job, especially if you're doing local sports. Now, when you're at the ESPNs of the world, when you're at the Fox Sports of the world, you don't have to really worry about that because you got the diehard sports fans who are there. But even in those instances, if you can do something that can be a little entertaining where, the non-sports fans can get a kick out of it, like they do on Inside the NBA, they talk about the NBA all the time. They talk about those games, whatever, but they have so much irreverent stuff that even if you're a non-sports fan, you're going to be a sports fan or non-basketball fan, you're going to be so entertained that you'll stick around.
Okay. So Mr. Hill, how rewarding has that been?
That's been very rewarding. I love it. I mean, like I'm making more of a transition. I still love sports. I'll always do sports. I think it'll always be my background, but I think I'm making more of a transition out of the world of sports while keeping one toe in it. I'll always, hopefully still work at Fox Sports. I love working over there. I've been over there for the last 11 years, but I've done entertainment. I've hosted my own talk show. I've done lifestyle shows. I'm even doing news a little bit now. I'm doing things behind the scenes. So there are different ways that I want to be seen for my career so I can grow, so I can expand, so that I won't be considered that one trick pony and people kind of pigeonhole you and keep you in that box. But even if you're in sports and you can be the irreverent type of personality that kind of crosses over, it's easier for you to go into that sports world. It's easier for you to go into that comedy world and to be seen in a different light when you're hosting things like on Netflix that maybe a sports related show, but it's more entertaining, more for the family or whatever. They can see your personality. So I think that's the rewarding part about it, is because I've been doing this. Wow, I've been doing it for 29 years now. And I don't think I would be able to do it if it was just me giving sports, stories and highlights and scores. You know what I mean? I got to
Yeah,
get a little bit of myself and a little bit of my personality in order to be able to maintain that.
certainly, certainly. I'd like to say that that's kind of what drew me to NBC Washington. Even though I want to do sports, I know I have to be familiar with everything else and working in it.
Mhm.
And speaking of working in a newsroom, how would you describe the culture of being at Fox Sports?
The culture at Fox Sports is wonderful. I enjoy everybody there. I was just having this discussion actually on Saturday when I was doing a show last Thursday when I did a show.
Mhm.
And I was just been there for 11 years. And they was talking about this one producer who, when he gets upset, he kind of goes off, right? And I'm like, I've never seen him get upset. And I started thinking, I'm like, I've never seen anybody there have like a particularly bad day where it was like, oh man, this guy's terrible. The culture at Fox Sports, man, while they may not be ESPN, while it may not have the ratings of ESPN, and it's still growing. I mean, it's only been 11 years since we've been at FS1. Fox Sports obviously has been around for a long period of time with the NFL and other sports. But as far as the culture is concerned, man, this is what really has kept me there, that has drawn me, that has made me love that network. And the reason why I say that I always want to keep one toe in the water when it comes to sports is because I still want to work at Fox Sports. I love it there. I absolutely love the car. I love the people. I love all the way from the PAs that just started off to Eric Shanks, who's the president of Fox Sports. I mean, everybody feels like a family and everybody treats you like that. I mean, we all have our days, but the days that you have are aberrations more than the norm. So the culture is wonderful. I just pray that one day, they get the rights to a lot of events and they start to add a little bit more shows so that it can catch up to the relevancy in a sense of ESPN. And although Fox obviously is relevant, obviously we know ESPN is still the king of all sports when it comes to entertainment because that's what people think about. It's like the battle between Coke and Pepsi. Even though, Pepsi's been around for a while, Coke has always been king, but Pepsi still has a lot of its fans. So hopefully Fox will grow to the point where it'll pass the taste test for the sports fans out there and it will become the number one destination for all sports fans one day, hopefully.
Love that, love that. Yeah, I'm always praying for that as well. And I just want more for the business. And I heard something recently where someone was saying like it's kind of fading away only because now you see a lot of athletes just start their own podcasts and things like that and kind of just addressing it to their audience as opposed to us as sports journalists really just asking them, trying to pick their brain and things like that. But thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Now I understand that you have a theater or a film career as well. Could you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, what's crazy is I actually got into sportscasting or being on television as a journalist because I actually wanted to be an actor in the beginning. But I figured, okay, this is a way, is a means for me to be on television to get some camera presence or whatever, and it's a little bit more stable early on, other than being an actor. Because where I was in high school, I was in Alabama. The high school I went to didn't have any kind of theater classes, or they didn't put on plays. We didn't do anything like that. But we did have a journalism class. And so I kind of got into that and figured that would be a way for me to find my niche of like meshing the two of the things that I really love, being on television and talking about sports at the same time. So I did that and went on to become the editor of the school newspaper and got the journalism student of the year when I was in high school. But yeah, theater has always been, or film has always been something I've always been interested in. And one of the reasons that I always wanted to come out here to LA is so I could pursue that. And recently, over the last 3, 4 years, I should say, I've been able to, do a lot of things. I've been in I've been in 4 films. I've been in a couple of shorts. I've been in a couple of TV series. I had a big role on this one TV series that got limited play. It was a small streaming show or whatnot, but it's something I'm really proud of, where I got to play a cricket judge and something that's outside the norm. And even now, I get roles that come in. A lot of those roles are, for me to play a sportscaster or play a broadcaster or whatever. But I get those roles to try and play a doctor or a cop or a bad guy or whatever. I enjoy those roles even more because it seems like I can really act and get out of my element. So I like that. And whatever, God has in store for me when it comes to my career, I just want to pursue. I want to do it all. I've always said I wanted to be the Black Ryan Seacrest, who acts. You know what I mean? Ryan Seacrest doesn't act, but I want to be Brian, the Black. I will be the Black Ryan Seacrest who also adds acting to his resume. Similar to what Oprah does. Oprah is an actress, but she does things behind the scenes. She produces. She's a talk show host. She does this. She writes books or whatever. She's an influencer. So I guess I want to be more so the male Oprah than the Black Ryan Seacrest. But yeah, that's my love for it all, man. I want to do it all.
Certainly, I agree because I mean, I've been told, throughout college where I would say, "Oh yeah, I want to be a sportscaster." Well, how much time have you had working in front of the camera, behind the camera? Do you know how to bring out a personality?
Hmm.
And you look at you look at First Take, you look at Shannon Sharp and Stephen A. They bring out that personality, they bring out that character.
Hmm.
Oh, how would you say you've utilized those skills, those film skills, and how do you bring it to the table whenever you're on air and doing your thing?
Yeah, I mean, part of what you do is, I guess it is a little bit more theatrical. I hate to say acting, but it is theatrical. It is a little bit more of, like there are some acting skills that you have where you actually have to project, especially when you're in theater. You have to project your words. You have to be a little bit more animated. You got to sell it. You know what I mean? And that's all acting and whatnot, but that's also passion. I think one of the things that I am really proud of is that I've never actually tried to be anybody except me. And it's one of the things that actually I try to get away from a lot because I was growing up when I was coming up through the ranks. I had a similar style to Stuart Scott. Rest in peace. But I was always myself. But people always think that I was trying to be like him, and I wasn't. Just me. If anybody knew who I was, or knew anything about me in my personal life, they knew that's just, what you saw is what you got on the air. But Stewart obviously had done on a big level at ESPN. So me coming up and having a similar type of urban type style where I use certain words or whatever and just sounded different than the typical guys that are on television. It sounds like this, you know what I mean? And using my regular voice and just kind of sounding smooth with it or whatever. I got, kind of condemned a lot from, everybody, even black people. They would think that you're trying to bite him or whatever. And so that kind of haunted me for a while. But when it came to, just using my theatrical skills or whatever, like I said, to be able to project, to be able to get into that character of selling it. But I think more so than anything outside of theater, that's helped me recently in my broadcasting career has been me doing stand-up comedy. I just started doing stand-up comedy about 7 months ago. And just that stage presence and overcoming your fear and being able to look into an audience and making them laugh. And if they don't laugh, how are you going to feel when you're in that moment where you got to turn things around or whatever? So it has given me an extra boost of confidence. It's given me an extra edge that I take on television, because if I can look out into a crowd of 100, 200 people, whatever, and they're barely laughing or they're laughing or whatever, I can get them in the palm of my hands. I can look into a camera and do anything I want to, and I can perform. So yeah, it all of those skills kind of intermesh, and I'm thankful that God has given me the blessing to be able to have all those skills.
That's right. That's right. I'm glad you mentioned that because some of the anchors where I work, they tell me, what you have to do is you have to imagine your audience in the studio in front of you. You can't just read off the prompter. You have to,
Hmm.
you have to, you have to really tell the story.
Hmm. Yeah, you got to that's important. You got to tell us, and that's so people will try and disrespect you sometimes. People that don't know, that don't understand what you do sometimes. Like, you get these trolls on the internet. All you got to do is read the prompter. Your job is easy. I could do your job, and they couldn't, because you can't read the prompter. You know what I mean? Reading the prompter is not easy. If you
A lot.
read the prompter, you're going to sound ridiculous because you're reading. You got to be able to take the words that are on the prompter and make them very conversational. And that's why I try and write my own stuff. But if you don't write it, you still got to make it conversational. You got to hit the right inflections. You got to be bold on certain words. You got to slow down. You got to have your timing right when it comes to reading that prompter. So all of that is a skill set that you have to have. But it's you. It's your personality. At the end of the day, there's only one person that is like you, and that's you. No one else matches your DNA. So when I talk to kids about getting into sports or getting into broadcasting, period, don't try and be a broadcaster. Don't try and be a sportscaster. You can look up to somebody, but don't ever try and emulate exactly what they do. Find your voice. And it may take time for you to find your voice, but once you find your voice, you'll get it. And I remember when it happened for me. I was an intern in Baltimore, and I was trying, just like everybody else, to try and sound like this, and code switch and overly enunciate my words. And then one night we were just playing around, and somebody said, "Hey, just play with it." And I played with it. And I just did it as myself. And I remember it was back in 1994. That's not long ago, because it was the U.S. team playing in the World Championships versus China. And I remember this one player named Wing Dong Ho. We all know what Wing Dong Ho is, but Wing Dong Ho changed my life. And I was like, he getting the ball, he was highlight or whatever. And I'm like, and my man Wing Dong Ho takes it strong to the hole. And I just said it like that. And people like, Mike, that's you. That's your voice. That is exactly what you say on off the air. You brought that on air, and people started cracking up. They loved it. I did the whole highlight like that. And then I remember my sports director, who's still a mentor to me now, named Bruce Cunningham, came with me. He's like, keep that. That's you. Don't ever change, no matter what. And throughout my career, I've been that. Now I've had ups and downs because of it. Some people like it, some people don't. But at the end of the day, it is who I am, and I refuse to change for anybody.
Wow. So whenever you found that voice, or when you found your voice, at what point did you realize your career was just excelling? Because, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, when you found the voice, but you still got to sell it. So, like, I know because of my voice, it's the reason I was able to move up as quickly as I did early on. I was in the military. Doing it the other way was getting no bites. When I started doing it that way and I started sending my tape out, I started getting a little feedback. You know what I mean? I started feeling like, okay, well, I'm on to something here. I just need an opportunity. When I finally got my opportunity in Hagerstown, I was in Hagerstown for 6 months. Went to Fresno. It took me 75 tapes to get a job, right? 75 tapes. This is back in the day when you actually had to send out physical tapes, 3/4 inch tapes. This wasn't like a link you send in an email, because emails didn't even exist. And you actually had to go to the post office, and mail them off. It was $3 for express mail or priority mail, or what I remember back in the day. And you actually mail them off, and you waited to get something back. And you usually got a letter back saying, hey, an EEO letter saying, hey, we got your job, but you don't hear anything, you're not going to get a job. But I sent 75 of those things out, and I got 75 pretty much responses. 72 were rejections. 3 were a callback. 1 was basically criticizing my tape, telling me, okay, you're not going to get the job, but let me help you out here, right? Another one was like saying something like, we like your style or whatever, especially the Wing Dong Ho. I remember Wing Dong Ho being on there. They had just had to crack up. That was in North Carolina. And then this one guy named Bob One Guesser hooked me up, sent me, asked me to come in for an audition. Went in, long story short, did the audition, didn't hear anything. The day I got out of the military, got my first job at Hagerstown, Maryland, spent 6 months there. And then I started excelling, like, because I had my voice and kept my voice and all that. And then I got to Nashville after like 2 years. I went from market 186 to Nashville, which is market 30 something in 2 years. And then I was in New York by 4 years into my career. You know what I mean? And then you start hitting, road bumps, because you hear viewers that might not like it, especially in Nashville. This urban cat that's coming out in Nashville saying things, whatever. But I refused to change, even though I went through the criticism until the first time I got fired. When I was in Dallas, I got fired by this guy who was there for a long period of time. I'm not going to say his name, but I was there and he had been in the market for a long period. And people loved me in the market, but he didn't like my style. And he was this old, white guy, and this was Dallas, Texas, very conservative and all that type of stuff like that. And me coming in there, even though I was getting good feedback from a lot of the people in the audience, there was a select few that didn't care for it. And so when I got fired because of that, it kind of hit me. I'm like, okay, I'm out of a job. Now what am I going to do? Eventually I got a job at ESPN a year and a half later, was sitting out. But when you sit out that long, you kind of, it's in your mind that's scary of like, okay, well, I don't want to get fired again because of my style. So now I need to kind of conform. And when I went to ESPN, like I said, I kind of ran into the whole Stuart Scott problem because it was like me and him. And then I remember one guy basically saying, hey, you know what? The reason you're not moving up is because your style is too, they said ghetto, straight up told me. And they said, we already have one of those. Whatever, you take that wherever way you want to. And so, it just haunted me. So I didn't want to get fired again. So I started losing a little bit of myself. And that was one of the biggest regrets in my life. Because when you lose yourself and you're not sure of yourself and you don't have that confidence in your abilities anymore, you start second guessing yourself, and that can be dangerous on the air. You got to have full confidence when you go on that set. So I don't know what your original question was. I kind of went off on a tangent, but my style is what it is, man, and I refuse to change for anybody now.
No, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. You mentioned how you were in the military.
Yep.
Which branch, if you don't mind me asking? I'm a
Air
military.
Force.
Okay. My
Yep.
dad my dad was in the army. He did 30 years.
Oh,
He was
for service.
thank you. So being in the military, we're about discipline. Do you think you probably used any of that discipline? You brought that to, your journalism career. You mentioned what happened to you in Dallas. What really just what kept you going?
My faith, spirituality, good friends. When I was in Dallas, I went through a major depression when I got fired, man, because you got to understand it was like right after I was in New York before Dallas, and the trajectory of my career was like as soon as I got the job in Hagerstown, like I said, I was in New York in 4 years, and then 9/11 happened. And then after 9/11 happened, the show I was on, which was a brand new show, went bankrupt. And so they had to cancel some shows or whatever. So I was out of a job, got a little severance, whatever, but I was out of a job 6 months, get the job in Dallas. And then I'm there for 9 months, and then that happens. And so now you're out of work two times within less than a 2 year period, and you got a family or whatever, man. So, and then this time it took forever. I mean, I wasn't getting callbacks. I felt like I was getting blackballed in the industry in some sense. And I found out I kind of was, because this guy was saying negative stuff about me, turning people off. And it was hard, man. So what got me through, man, is just my prayer. I don't know how I made it if it wasn't for, the faith that I had in God. Now, that was tested a lot, because when you're out of work for a long period of time, your bills started piling up, and, you got a family to feed, and you don't feel like your career is going to get back on track after a fast start. You start doubting yourself and you start worrying. And so when I went through that major depression, man, I started gaining weight. I was thinking about changing careers, but once again, just prayer, changed things for me. And what really changed things for me is I actually got a job interview in Tampa after about a year or so of being out of work. And went to Tampa, didn't want to go to Tampa. It was a terrible station, but I needed a job, right? And so I got there, did the audition, killed the audition. News director tells me, it's like, as long as we don't find out you're an axe murderer, this job is yours. They even told me to go take the urine test next door. They tell you to take the urine test. You got the job pretty much, right? Okay. I know I ain't been doing no drugs. I know I'm not an axe murderer. I'm about to move to Tampa.
Like
So,
that's like well beyond the interview process, and that's
yeah, yeah, that's the final step. You go take the drug test, then like, okay, well, they're asking for my urine, so I'm getting this job, right? So I went and did all that stuff, and I know I didn't take any drugs. And I know it wasn't an axe murderer, but I guess I just wasn't good enough for them when the guy that I used to work for started saying negative stuff about me. So like after 2 weeks, I'm looking for a house in Tampa. Me and my wife looking for a house in Tampa, thinking, okay, we're gonna move there. Doing we always, even though I haven't had an offer or anything like that, I just knew I was going to get this job. And after 2 weeks, noticed, man, I haven't heard anything. What's going on? This is kind of taking a long time. And I called back to somebody I knew there, and they said they're not going to hire you because the guy that you used to work for said some negative stuff about you, which was totally untrue. And yeah, it kind of turned them off, and so I wasn't going to get the job. And that night, this was a major decision in my life, man. Something that actually could have changed my life in a lot of different ways, not just my personal, but my professional life especially. But yeah, my personal life would have been affected too. So the guy that was saying negative stuff about me after he unfairly fired me, I went down there and I was going to hurt this guy. I mean, straight up. I was so mad, man, because he was taking away my lifestyle. He was taking away my career. He was lying on me. This is a guy that obviously I came into the market. I was doing good work. There was a lot of people that really liked it. But once again, there was enough people on his side that didn't. And he didn't like it because I was getting all this notoriety or whatever. He was a little, jealous after people told me that and or threatened. And I felt that all this rage, and I went down there and getting back to my spirituality and getting back to God. I was on the freeway and it was about 100 degrees outside, I remember, and I'm sweating. I had the air conditioner on blasting and I'm like sweating, man, still. And I'm like, I had to roll the window down to get some air. And I rolled the window down and I heard a voice basically said, "What are you doing? I got something better for you." And I went from being the maddest I've ever been in my life to the calmest I've ever been in my life, just like that. And I turned around, went back home, and then 2 months later, I got a job at ESPN. Had I gone down there and hurt this guy, obviously I would have gone to jail, could have been gone to jail, would have ruined my career, would never been in business again. Had I gotten a job in Tampa, period, I wouldn't have been available to get a job at ESPN. So all these things I say for a reason, man, because you think you have burdens in your life, but sometimes your burdens become your blessings. You just got to learn the lesson within those burdens for them to become the blessing. And what I learned is, man, I got to be patient. And sometimes what comes to you is taking time to come to you because the right thing has to come to you at that moment. So once again, had I gotten the job in Tampa, I was going to take a job that I really didn't care for, but I needed a job and I would have been stuck in for a couple of years and I would have looked at it that way. I would appreciate, I would have done a good job there. Or if I would have acted on my emotions and gone down and hurt this guy, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. So this is these are major moments in my life, man, that I don't mind sharing because I think this is something that people need to hear. Because we all in this business, in this industry, we all go through ups and downs and highs and lows, and just talk about the different personalities that you got to deal with. You're going to deal with a lot of people that are great people. You're going to deal with a lot of assholes in this industry. So just be prepared for it and just kind of keep your head down, keep your faith, and that, to answer your question, is what keeps you going.
Certainly. I'm learning not to let my emotions control me as I'm new in this business. Now, with all that you've just told me, what is something you would tell a younger Mike Hill? Just to wrap up things.
Just be patient, man. I mean, just like it's gonna come, it's gonna happen. It's the same thing I got to tell an older Mike Hill, me presently. I'm going through situations now where I'm doing a lot of stuff, but I want to have that persistent, consistent job because 2 years ago, I was working at the Black News Channel as their main anchor in the mornings, and they went bankrupt. So being out of work consistently for the last 2.5 years, I've been having to hustle. I'm still working for Fox Sports. I've always had like 3 or 4 jobs, so I've always been able to make ends meet. But trying to build on that is, where I want to be in my life. So I tell myself, just like I would have told my younger self, to be patient. And because of what I learned in my younger years and the things I've gone through in my younger years, it's prepared me for, once again, those lessons that I've learned during the burdens that became my blessings, to be patient. So yeah, I'd be like, hey, I know it's tough. I know it's hard. I know you're grinding. I know you want it. I know you're hungry. Keep on putting in your work. Just stay consistent. Continue to prepare yourself to be ready so you don't have to get ready when it actually comes, because it's coming. So the patience and just not allow, like you said, don't allow your emotions to get the best of you. Just take a calm, deep breath, and eventually the things that are meant for you to happen will happen for you.
Burdens become blessings. Thank you, Mr. Hill. Appreciate you for joining me today.
Absolutely, my brother.